95 of what if civilization started over. Let's get into it. So last episode, we saw World War VI happen. That's a pretty big event. And while Rome has gained a lot of land in Europe, as front lines are pretty large here. There's this giant front line here. There's also a pretty large front line here, and a front line in the Americas to worry about. So today we're going to be seeing what happens, let's just see the continuation. Firstly, we're going to be starting with the Myanmar-Burmese front, as Myanmar/Burma is finally going to fully capture the capital of India, and a break through this front line, or this barrier that the Persians have made, as the Persians will be losing full control over the Indian territory, and Burmese troops start to push into Persia. And Persia is not in a very good position right now, or mainly just these two countries in general, but specifically South Persia. Excluding Turkey, South Persia has this front line, the entire Persian Gulf, and this front. And the only support is really North Persia, which is already focusing on this. And then there's Russia, which is kind of focusing on all of this. And it's a pretty large front, so Persia is basically left alone. And with this, some countries are going to continue pushing through these front lines, as Russia has sent a majority of their troops over into Europe to help. Whereas this country will be continuing their push into the region, and it's not going well at all, as the capital, the Arabian country is on the doorsteps of the South Persian capital. And the Myanmarians are also going to be able to just slither their way throughout the coastlines and work their way towards the capital. With the South Persians, we're having a very, impressive counteroffensive and pushing these areas back a lot. And but the Arabians, that's the thing. One thing is the Arabians are focused here, so they aren't getting involved, which is good for Persia in a way. Myanmar, all of their forces are at Persia, or at least majority of them. These guys also have to focus up here and some down here, so Persia's in a decent position. But this country will be able to push back. And the South Persians, having more and more troops that are fighting them, leaving their front lines, are going to be able to push back, and the front line looks something like this. Russia will finally be able to make the counteroffensive against Turkey, breaking through their sort of front line, reaching back at the Black Sea. And they're sending more, forces. Or I could just say the Black Lake, because it's not a lake anymore. As the Russians fully capture some of the northern parts of the sea and slither their way down towards the Istanbul area. The Romans are continuing to push back greatly over, specifically in the Swedish area, as they continue to push back. And they quickly go ahead, capture many Norwegian areas, and basically this area is just going to be swarmed by Rome. And, the rest of it is just going to be going ahead and being occupied by the Russians. Because they don't want Rome on another front, even if it's their puppet state. They don't really want that. So they go ahead and occupy all the areas and start to directly fight the Roman puppet state. And the Russians also go ahead and occupy this island. The Roman puppet state is going to be very successful at pushing through these areas, and eventually they will be able to capture the capital of the Lithuanian country, as the forces will be continuing to push their way through, eventually reaching Russian territory. And because of this, the Roman puppet state will be continuing their push, taking these northern halves of the country, and eventually going ahead and taking the whole northern half of the country, as the official Romans will be going ahead and taking more territories, leaving this tiny bit of territory here left in the remains of the Lithuanian country, as eventually the Lithuanian country is forced into surrender. And we can see that the Roman puppet state is continuing to push back a lot, as they send a lot of their forces. And there's a lot of fighting going along the Black Sea, specifically along here, as Rome is continuing to put more and more naval assets on here, and they're getting extremely close to the Finnish coast, and they're threatening an invasion. here, America is going to be able to push the rebels, the enemies, out of New York, their capital, which they've realized now that's not a very secure capital. But you can't just change your capital in the middle of a world war. But they still are able to push back greatly. But that does lead for some sacrificing of troops over in these western areas as the Louisiana country continues to go ahead and kind of start to look more like the Louisiana colony. Yeah. And well, this is going to be very successful as a lot of the Midwestern areas are taken. And a huge spearhead is made towards Michigan areas. But the Americans will be able to make a giant circlement of Floridian troops here and go ahead and take the area. Yeah. And, well, yeah. When we go here, we can see the front line in Africa isn't going so well for the Libyan country, as the Libyan country is very far spread out. They are spread out, like, all of this is Libyan controlled. Normally they're just like here, which they can barely control themselves, so it's not going very well, as the Libyans will be taking this capital region, and it would be, oh, no, not the Libyans, the African Union thingy. Yeah, African Union thingy. That's definitely a very good name. But the Libyans will be pushing back in that area. But the capital of the Green Country is taken, and these two countries are basically into sort of a capitulation state. So Libya, being Libya, is going to decide to go ahead and occupy all of these territories and officially controlling the entirety of North Africa. And they will be able to make a pretty stable front line over in this region. Going over here, we can see that the Arabian country is pushing back even more. As well, the Arabian country is absolutely destroying the Horn of Africa country. This Horn of Africa country is a very historic country in history. It has been one of the main countries, like a symbol of democracy in this world. And it's now being defeated by the Romans, who for some reason support the draining of the entire Mediterranean and the destroying of many countries. And well, there is not too close yet, but it might be coming close, as all these front lines are impeding up the north. But the people are very nationalistic, so they will be pushing back. But then a secret document is leaked. Somewhere hidden in the Roman capital, something is said. Found by a Russian spy in the Roman capital, there's a document that says, and I quote, "This was not our fault. This was not our fault. We did cause this. It was not what everybody thinks. The plan went perfectly, and it all was blamed on them." And this Russian spy brings it back to the capital of Russia, and Russia stings to investigate. They decide to look around. They don't want to look around Rome. We're in the middle of a world war. You don't want to look around at your enemy with spies. And well, who does that, blaming it on them? What big thing could they have, another nation have caused? After a few months of investigating, the investigation is closed for now, as they decide they have to focus on the fighting, as Roman troops are continuing to impede on their territory and starting to make a huge encirclement over here. And well, the Russians are able to make an impressive counteroffensive over here and take some of these areas. Yeah. And time to go back to the Persian front, where it's not going very well, as Libya has been given the job to occupy all of North Africa and fight against this. Yeah. And, well, these countries aren't doing very well, as the southern Persian country loses their capital officially. And the Burmese country, which has kept their front lines, continues to move down the coast. But then, in the southern Persian country, right here, on the border, where the old capital of a very historic nation lies. Well, it's a very historic capital is what I'm talking about. Capital that has been controlled by many nations throughout history, but mainly this one. This nation once lived in the mountains were settled because of Middle Eastern and Central Asian immigrants coming here. They made their mark in history throughout this whole region. And well, they are gone, but now they're back. As Iran rebels away from the both Persian countries. The Iranian rebellion is here. Iran, throughout history, its original reformation was because of a union, but it's coming back through a civil war over in the North and South Persian countries. And the front lines look something like this. As huge areas over here come back to support what was once their nation. And these areas aren't too fond of support, but the Iranians do send a lot of gifts over to them for the civilians to just join the nation. And Iran has remade their mark. They have continued to build their mark. They're reforming their mark. As the Iranians directly fight Russia again. But Russia will be able to push back, which Iran keeps a stable front line. And as Iran continues with them being back, nobody expected this, as they go ahead and get more coastline and attempt to conquer all of their historic lands, which their opinions of their historical lands, their opinions, they want to reform their empire, which will expand like this. Yep, their empire, no, probably some of these areas as well. It was giant, the old empire. It was great. But the Iranian troops would be going ahead, with support from the civilians, going ahead and capturing the capital of the North Persian country. And in a very big sweeping movement, more and more areas of these Persian countries, the two countries that were once united in the Persian Union, the communist Persian Union countries, have fallen. As the Iranians and the Burmese and the Arabians continue, as South Persia will be falling. If not the whole world, just South Persia. As all these areas surrender, in these northern Persian areas, Turkey is going to be invading them, and they will be quickly able to push back. Russia catches on, and they are going to swarm a huge fleet of their troops over into here in order to attempt to stop more nations from occupying that area. They are just occupational forces, though. As more and more troops continue to push into these Persian regions, Turkey will take the final regions. As well, Persia is gone, Iran is back. And now, all of these troops from the Middle East, they don't have to worry about Persia anymore. Myanmar can solely focus on Africa and Europe. It's not going good for Russia. But, well, when we go look at the Russian capital, the investigation is finally continued, and they are suspecting, well, other nations. They have a few nations in mind. They are looking at America, the southern country, the South African country even, and China. They are going to start with America and these two before they get to China. But for now, we can continue more of the fighting. And, well, until that, actually, there's been a huge stalemate front. But the Turkish will be able to push back against the Russians over in their occupational zones, as civilians are still calling themselves Persian and don't really like Russia. But the government says that they fight for Russia, so they fight for Russia. Yeah. And that's really all the major pushbacks that happen. But then the investigation cues in the capital of China, the brown Chinese country. They look in there for a few days. And they're going to look in there for a little while. And they're going to continue investigating throughout all of China. But for now, we can see more events. Such as the Myanmarian country's invasion of this blue country. As the Myanmarian country will be rapidly going ahead and invading this country for no apparent reason. And well, it's to get access to Indonesia. They feel like Indonesia is sort of a thorn in them, and they think they could single-handedly defeat all of the area. And some countries on their side don't really like this. Like the Arabian country says, you could have just done a giant naval blockade or something and decided to help fight in the main front lines of Russia and Africa, and even America to an extent. But, well, the Myanmarians kind of want some influence, so they're going to very politely open knock on the doorsteps of these Indonesian nations and continue pushing down. As a majority of the Burmese troops are over here, as the very disunited Indonesia isn't doing very well. But they will be able to make a giant naval blockade here, which is able to stop the Burmese country. As they're mainly focusing on, the Navy is mainly over here in the Indian Ocean, and is currently making its way over here. Yeah. And well, we can look at some major events as this country, this very historic country, as I've said many times, is continuing to start to collapse. As more and more regions will start to surrender over to this nation. And well, even this country starts to go ahead and go in and occupy some of these territories in order to preserve the country, and a lot of the areas just surrender. The people are basically gone, but the government is still fighting. The people's morale in this country is gone. But then, one very big thing is found in China. After they checked the Chinese capital, they went down southern China, where they would expect a lot with Hong Kong and a bunch of stuff happening down here throughout history, but they found nothing. Then they decided to go to the old capital of the Chinese Empire, Beijing. What they found there was interesting. There was that secret bunker that was made, and that they found the documents saying that China funded the Mediterranean Empire's rebellion, eventually causing the downfall of the Mediterranean Union and making the empire, which kind of caused the Chinese Civil War with the, just a bunch of stuff, and a whole bunch of stuff happened. Yeah. But they found something interesting in that bunker. They found another bunker. A bunker that wasn't supposed to be found. The first document they found in the entrance of the bunker was a document saying that this bunker wasn't a real Chinese bunker. It was actually a Roman bunker. A bunker that some people in China hired to build. That hired Roman people to build a bunker for a YouTube video, is what they said. Or a TubeView video. Yeah. But they secretly made it a government bunker and hid these documents, and well, what they found was very interesting. China was not responsible for the funding of the Mediterranean Empire's rebellion. These documents say that these were forged documents that made it look like China did it, but they really didn't. And what it really says is that Rome funded the Mediterranean Empire's rebellion and basically caused the entirety of the world to go crazy. World War V wouldn't have happened without Rome. China Civil War would have happened without Rome. And this angers not only the Chinese people, who have literally thought they were fighting for a purpose to get rid of the evil, which they thought it was China, which apparently the real evil was Rome all along. Not only that, the yellow team and the blue team are outraged. They are outraged that their own ally destroyed them in the Mediterranean Empire Rebellion back in episode 75. And well, this is going to warrant a few things to happen. And this one very much makes sense. As the yellow team and the blue team reunite back into the Mediterranean Union, on the same day that this union is made, both countries announce to their countries. They're very nationalistic people. They all say, we are in this war. We thought it was China that did this. We thought it was China. And in reality, we were wrong. And we are now in the war on the side of one's former enemy. And now we are here to fight for our people, fight for our country, fight for the right of the Mediterranean. And not only this, remember that Alex Einstein? Alex Einstein, last episode, arrived in the capital or areas of Germany. And he announced that he was the owner of this world, the creator, as per se. And well, his rebellion has started as over in Berlin, a huge, but at the same time pretty small rebellion happens. As more pockets of the German puppet state start to break away, and well, this is the front line, and this is the whole pocket that breaks away from Rome. And not only that, Chinese people they do not approve of this. The people have decided, you know what? Enough is enough. And more countries start to join China in the cause of remaking the Union. And China joins the war. But not only that, many countries start to join the known as the Chinese Pact against Rome and for the freedom of China, is what it's called. And well, all of these countries join this union. All of these countries here join the cause of China. All these countries here join this cause for China. And not only that, Indonesia unites. Indonesia does not like this at all. This news, they weren't supposed to be independent, but they kind of wanted to be under one. They wanted to be under one for most of history, and they finally get to be under one nation once again. And well, the Philippines joins the Indonesian unification. And with the Chinese unification, Oceania joins the cause of Rome. The Roman cause? This is the largest cause in history. The cause to go against one singular nation. All of Oceania joined the cause. And so does all of these South African nations here. They all join the cause of Rome. And well, even more countries start to join the cause, as many of these Canadian nations, and actually the entirety of North America, joins against the cause of Rome, except the nations that are Roman allies, for obvious reasons. All of Alaska, and even this country here, this thing that hasn't done anything in a while other than unifying two countries together. And wait, did they take Iceland historically? They did. And they joined the cause as well. And well, basically 90% of the world, half the world, joins the cause against this nation. And also, the South American country, a few days after this news is seen, will be greatly invading into the purple Mexican country. The South Americans have had enough, or what they call themselves, the United Union of the Americas is what they call themselves now. Their cause to unite the entirety of the continent and the world is officially what they call starting. And that is going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of What If Civilization Started Over. See you in the next episode where we see the final episode of World War VI. Bye!